At last, it's that time of the month again, when my cravings for board games must be satiated. I must go out and get more. $20? What kind of board game worth anything am I going to be able to get with that? If you've ever heard of the drafting mechanic before, it's likely in reference to one of two games, Sushi Go or Seven Wonders. For those unfamiliar, drafting involves each player receiving a set of cards handpicked by the gods of chance, and you're given the ultimate choice. Choose one of the cards to keep for yourself, while sacrificing the rest to one of your neighbors, and potentially giving them the card that they need, or giving them one of the cards you'll need later on to earn huge amounts of points. And in this way, you're trying to collect sets of cards that will allow you to earn the endgame victory condition, or certain abilities that will help you have better turns in the future. Or, if you're that guy, you're looking at your neighbor's cards and trying to decide just the right card to take from them, moments before they finish their set. You stare at them straight in their eyes as you flip it over, tauntingly, knowing that they could never get that card. And let's be real, we've all been that guy before. So, Sushi Go Party has the strange designation of being both the base game and the expansion. And no, it's not something like Small World, where there are multiple base games that you can start with and then reintegrate everything into one set later. I'm saying this has the very few cards that Sushi Go had in the original game already in it, plus all of the expansion material. But what makes this game so much better isn't just that it has more cards. It doesn't just add more content, but it's the customization of every game that really makes each encounter with it so unique and special. This is your menu, which, while you may have a hard time using it if you try reading it in the more conventional sense, it allows you to select what sushis you're going to be using in that specific game. And you could go to the effort to putting together all of your favorite sushis, making the game both satisfying and making you want to order some takeout while you're at it. Or if you just can't be bothered or you don't feel like trying to build your own menu, there are some conveniently preset menus in the instructions, allowing you to customize or not however you see fit, and using that you can have a very specific experience with the game. But this allows you to have all the instructions for the sushi you're using that game in one convenient place on the board. You've got your scoring track around the border. It's just a very nice centralized position that allows the game to have a bit more focus from round to round, so you're always reminded of what you're trying to do ultimately. So right off the bat, you've got some life-changing decisions to make, and the game hasn't even started. Yet, as you make those designations for what's going on your menu, you find yourself slowly sorting through the various cards to find the ones you need. The design of the box is a nice thought, standing up the cards in sections and allowing you to keep them neat and separate. But so little space between each means that you're constantly trying to peek through and figure out what cards are what. Even someone like me who spent a good half hour looking for how to organize it all in this box has a really hard time, especially towards the edges, trying to figure out what this is without pulling out these little tablets. And while you're playing, after you've removed some of these sections, I'm trying to get them out to begin with is kind of a chore. If you can see there, this tablet is falling across where those cards previously were, meaning that trying to put everything away again is just as frustrating, and then you're getting a little frustrated right now. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. So, and on top of that, the board doesn't really even fit the box. Like, you kind of just gotta push it in there, and the instructions are gonna This is a very frustrating box. I don't like it very much. Because it's metal and it's so oddly shaped, you're gonna end up just leaving it in a corner by itself with no friends, all alone, because you can't stack anything with it. It's such an awkward, inconvenient shape to use. While I would love to get another box for all this stuff, the thing is that any other box, oh my god, any other box, you're gonna find a hard time organizing the cards. So unless you put all of the cards in, you know, an Ultra Pro or something, and even then, you have to somehow find how you're going to be carrying the menu with you, unless you don't want to use the menu at all. So it's just a very frustrating situation, but it is what it is, you know?
So the cards are divvied out and everyone's starving by now, so you get down to it, choosing cards, revealing simultaneously, and passing along. The table quickly goes silent as each player pores over their new set of cards, trying to remember what was in the last few hands they drew, and if there's a chance that they'll see any of the cards they needed from those hands again. Most cards will give you straight victory points, depending on how many of that type you have, or if you've completed a set. Others will provide you with special actions that you can activate on your later turns, helping you make potentially better combos down the road, assuming all of your friends aren't ravenous gluttons who took all of the sashimi before you even had a chance to eat any. Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's right, I'm looking at you, jerk.
Luckily, once you do place a card, no one else can even think of touching it, leaving you feeling safe and satisfied that your cards are... No. Bad hand. No!
At the end of each round, all your points are added up and tallied on the scoreboard, except for your dessert, which is saved for endgame scoring. You shuffle all the cards back together, add a few more dessert cards to the deck, and you're good to go for another 2 rounds. Whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. Seems simple, right? Yes. Yes, it does. Perhaps a little too simple.
So, as I mentioned earlier, the drafting mechanic is a huge part of what makes Seven Wonders have its own unique identity. It kind of is the grandfather of the genre. And while both Sushi Go Party and Seven Wonders are ruled by this mechanic in a lot of ways, the two games couldn't be any more different. For starters, in Sushi Go, you can play any card out of your hand at any time, meaning that there's a lot less thought in terms of what card you need to play each turn. You can play a sashimi in hopes of getting more down the road without worrying about, oh, I can't take that card later because I don't have the prerequisites for it. Any card can be played at any time, meaning it's a much quicker, fast-flowing game without as much deep thought. Seven Wonders, on the other hand, has you painstakingly and arduously collecting different resources that your civilization generates, meaning that over the course of the 3 rounds, you're going to have to be collecting those resources in order to build the bigger and better cards that you need to finish your sets. And ultimately, this means that Seven Wonders is a bit more thought-provoking in this regard. You need to plan ahead. You need to remember that resources aren't available in that 3rd round, and so you need to have all of the tools that you want to develop your civilization with well before that point is reached. Another thing to keep in mind with Sushi Go Party is that regardless of the number of players joining you for that particular game, the same number of cards are being shuffled together, meaning you have the same chances of drawing a miso soup or takeout box card with 2 players as you do with 7 or 8. This has resulted in a few games I've played where the number of tofu cards that are available are so extreme, there are so many of them, that it makes the card worthless. So you're constantly passing back and forth hands dominated by tofu cards and then maybe a handful of nigiri or something else. And that results in the game feeling like the decisions are being made for you rather than you having any control over which cards you take. It's all very laid out and logical for you. There's one card that will help you most. This is juxtaposed to Seven Wonders format where all the cards are separated into 3 ages, and within each age, cards can be easier or more difficult to purchase because of the number of resources needed. So the game, to a degree, ramps up over time, allowing you to gather small resources in the beginning and then get those cards in later ages. It has a bit more of a progression, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And on top of that, at the bottom of each card, it states if you should include this card with the player count that you have for that game. So there's never an overabundance of a specific type of card. Like, there's never too much science in around, because this says it's for 6 players and up, meaning that all of the card counts have been in some way balanced depending on the player count. That being said, neither drafting game should really be played with any less than 4 players, and even 7 players, despite the name being 7 Wonders, is a bit of a stretch for either game. The nice sort of middle ground is the 4 to 6 player count.
The last thing to note is that Sushi Go Party can feel a little Euro-y at times. That is to say, there's very little player interaction. You're silently picking cards from your hand, waiting for others to finish their part of the turn, and then getting a new hand to silently peruse. Unless you're actively trying to take those cards that your neighbors need, you're not really doing anything that directly affects anyone else. 7 Wonders, on the other hand, has you borrowing resources from your neighbors to potentially pay for the cards that you're taking that they needed so desperately, and then sees them getting revenge at the end of each round by amassing a huge army, earning victory points at your misfortune. It may sound slight, but those little details can make all the difference when it comes to deciding what you build, and has you making decisions beyond the "what's good for me right now" strategy. You have to be aware of everything going on around you, so someone doesn't run away with the win because no one else was taking science. How long did you guys think you could hold together a civilization without a compass?
So is Sushi Go Party overly simple? Absolutely. But that doesn't make it a bad game. It's a pretty decent selection of cards and layouts and experiences for a very low price, and you're getting everything of Sushi Go in this box. You're getting the base game, you're getting all the expansion cards, even some of the promos that was released for the original game. Everything is there. And while 7 Wonders is definitely a more heady, intellectual game, that's not an experience for everyone, and it's also a much pricier experience. 7 Wonders runs at around $50, and that's assuming you don't want to buy the various expansions for it. Leaders, Cities, Babel, the extra Wonders, art packs, so on and so forth. There's a lot of content to be had there, and if you're not happy with the base game, it's going to be a lot more money right out of the bat to improve it. This is 20 bucks through and through, and for that, this is a pretty cool game. Really quick before we go, I know I didn't talk about it too much in the video, but these cards are frickin' adorable.